Hello there, C.Note here, and welcome back to Happy Chemicals. I'm Christian Rivera, and I'm not wearing any pants because, look, this is why we do chest up, right? And whatever else is a mystery. um, Today, I want to talk about going back to basics. I think my friend Antonia Dodge on Twitter asked recently, like, where are you at when it comes to personality type stuff? And the question was like, are you casual? Are you obsessed? Are you into deep learning around it? And I feel like for me, I've kind of circled back around to casual, but in a way that is accepting and understanding the power of going back to basics. By basics, I mean the four-letter code and how useful it is, particularly as a millennial and younger people who are getting into personality types. It's really interesting to think about how we want to get kind of academic about it. We want to dive into the material. We want to understand it as much as possible. And one of the reasons I started this channel and started the podcast around this material is, first of all, as a personal expression to share my story and my growth journey. And secondly, to dive into the material itself to better understand it. And then third, I kind of forgot what my point was of what I was just literally saying. Um, but really, I wanted to go back to basics because as a younger person, it's exciting to get into the nuances and it's exciting to understand it all. But I think as a millennial, we tend to lean on academic, like being smart and knowing things feels safe to us as millennials. And so understanding cognitive functions, understanding the depth of it, understanding depth like psychology, understanding various maps and models and stuff like that, outside of connecting it to ourselves and our psychology, is there's an incentive there in terms of our internal programming. And so going back to basics is for me a way of not being a slave to my programming and starting to think about how can actually the basics of personality type, first of all, remain accessible so that it is shareable, it is expressible, it is something that when you're having conversations with people, you don't have to explain what introverted thinking is first before you can have a conversation with them. And you can actually start to do more of an interactive interchange with them in a more casual way. So that's kind of what I mean by circling back around to casual, is that most people can understand what introversion and extroversion is. Maybe there's a little bit of calibration and saying, oh, it's not quite about people, but it's more about your sense of reality. It's more of where you prefer to spend time naturally, more in your mind and by yourself and doing more introverted solo things versus more extroverted, often, yes, people interactive, but outside world things. And that could include constructing things, working in teams, coordinating people, or building projects and doing things that have output or resource gain on the other side of it, right? Which is an extroverted activity. So, there are ways that we can explain these things that are not necessarily about having to go through talking about all of the literal material. And I kind of went dormant for a while on this channel because I didn't know what else to do. I started talking about personality types in all of its detail and all of the varying aspects that I felt I could related to INTPs, talking about relationships, talking about career, talking about this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, you know what? I covered all the basics. If I get into starting to talk about more, it's just going to be like semantics and going in circles. And, it felt unnecessary. I want my videos to be evergreen, which means that if I'm going to be rehashing the same things over and over again, then it's like cannibalizing my previous work, right? So something about going forward and bringing things back to basics and talking about being an INTP relative to simply the four-letter code, and you can still get so much out of that. There's a lot around time management related to perceivers and judgers. There's a lot about opinions and connection and relationships regarding thinking and feeling dynamics. And intuiting and sensing has a lot about how we see the world, how we perceive things, what we look at first versus what we'll look at later, and introvert extrovert in terms of how we value our time and how we value um, where we are in a sense. So I mean, there's a lot to think about bringing things back to basics, and I'm also thinking about how I want to go forward in terms of what I'm doing with this, right? Because like if I'm going to be on camera and I'm going to be talking about this and leading you through something, it's like, where am I leading you to? And some of those things are still being put together, right? So I have my courses, which are helpful. I have my email list on happychemicals.org. You can sign up for that. And I'm going to be revamping some of those things to create more of a flow and give you more of a place to go and give you more stuff to dive in and dive through and take into your life. So I wanted to just kind of make reference to this idea of going back to basics because there's, and if anything, it's about focusing. It's focusing you as someone who is probably going down a personality type rabbit hole to try to understand the material. But it is a question at some point, are you trying to understand the material or are you trying to understand yourself? And at some point, it's easy to kind of trail off and start to get into trying to just understand stuff, right? And it becomes like a dissociation more than it becomes learning, right? Now, learning for the sake of learning is powerful. Like knowing about personality types and all this stuff has been incredibly valuable to me. So I'm not discouraging you from doing that. It's about understanding that you don't necessarily always need to go into the depth, or you don't need to get your parents to go into the depth, or your friends or your partner, right? You can have conversations, you can connect with people with the 4-letter code. You can give people advice based on the 4-letter code. There's a lot you can understand about, again, career and relationships and people dynamics just based on the 4-letter code. What I love about some of the places like the British Association for Psychological Type and some of the places that are sort of the foundation for a lot of personality type stuff is that they tend to stick with the 4-letter code. They're really honoring Myers-Briggs for what it is. And the depth, again, is interesting. If you go into cognitive functions and you go into like all the nuances and you want to use it as something in your career as a coach or a psychologist, like there's a lot of depth in there that can be incredibly valuable when you need to go into depth. But I'm saying for like the average person, the average rabbit holing person that is just like, I want to take a test online, I want to kind of understand myself, you know, it's very okay to stay at that level, and it's okay to communicate with each other at that level. So in a way, it's like if you're here and you're wanting to stay here and you're wanting to stay at this like 4-letter code level for a while and trying to understand yourself a little bit more and doing it kind of casually, like that's totally fine. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, especially when you're trying to do personal growth, right? You're not trying to use it for coaching, you're not trying to use it for any sort of depth. You're just like, my relationship sucks and I can't figure out why I keep making the same mistakes, right? 4-letter code's great for that. That's a great starting place. And then if you need depth, the introverted thinking, extroverted feeling, all the depth psychology is there, right? To keep going down the rabbit hole. So in a way, this is an invitation for me to allow myself to be okay with expressing things on a surface level at times, and that there will be times where the depth is necessary, and that there will be times where um, you need various tools for different jobs, right? And it's about kind of understanding the distinction between the 4-letter code as a tool and cognitive functions as a tool. Like they're two different things built on each other. Like cognitive functions are the foundation of Myers-Briggs, but the foundation of what's on the surface allows for accessibility for more people to come in. And it allows for me, again, like I said, having conversations at parties or with, friends that I'm introduced to, like my wife's friends that I'm introduced to, or anything like that, that I can use as frameworks in my mind as simple constructions and not getting tangled in the web of all the nuances. Because that can really that could be like getting lost in the cognitive woods sometimes. And for me, I'm always trying to untangle areas in which I'm trying to be smart for the sake of being smart, and sometimes that just doesn't matter. Sometimes it's not useful, sometimes it's not relevant. And so I think there's a certain I'm in a place where there's a lot of humility I'm being struck with. And some of that is, being okay with going back to basics, and that doesn't make me sound stupid or irrelevant or lazy or any of the judgments that I might have of myself about going into this quote unquote basic material. Or even if you're going through the internet and you're trying to understand more about the 4-letter code, and you come across people who are being very hoity toity about cognitive functions, and it's like, this is the only way to understand yourself. It's like, it isn't. But it's cool. And I understand if someone is being very protective of their intellectual, strength. Because, like, if the intellectual power is what you have, you're going to defend it. So I understand. I relate to that. But also, it's not everything, and it's okay to just stick with the 4-letter code. So for me, it's like going back to basics is powerful. It's accessible, and I often get people in my comments who go into my courses who are just understanding the basics, and I have to remember that those people very much need nurturing and support as well. And that's part of the humility process for me. So even though this is just the note also, this channel is still very much a personal journal. So I'm like talking at you out loud um, about this stuff and my intentions and what I'm thinking. And I'm also just in a spot where I got to shake some stuff up. So, and I need to express some things more. So here I am talking at you again. Welcome back to the channel. And hopefully there will be more things. And of course, if you have questions about INTPs or creative career stuff or mental health stuff or, I don't know, opinions on AI or something, I don't know. I don't know what's coming, but uh, this is a channel about me, personal journaling, happy chemicals, INTP, Enneagram sometimes, whatever comes up, right? So ask a question, and if I answer it, I answer it. So thanks for being here. I appreciate you. I'm going to wrap this up. I got work to do, and I'll talk to you later. Happychemicals.org is the website. Let's go C.Note.substack.com. And I think that's it. So comments. Also join on YouTube. I would love to start to build a premium member community here on YouTube, and then be able to do videos responding to specific questions and start to build that. That would be really interesting. So let me know. Let's try it. Let's see how it goes. All right. See ya.